Welcome everyone to the online version of the Learn to Burn 1 class. I'm your host, Morgan Metter, and today we will be discussing kind of what to expect on the day of the burn with Ted Zavishlock. And Ted is the statewide private lands coordinator or supervisor, I should say, for the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission out of the Calico Rock office. Thank you so much, Ted, for joining us today. And I will let you go ahead and get started on your presentation.
Okay, thank you. Well, today this presentation is titled "The Day of the Burn." So the day has finally come. You put in the preparation. The old saying, 90% preparation, 10% implementation, is kind of definitely goes along with prescribed fire. And so these are some final kind of things that you're going to need to think about on that actual day of the burn. So one of the big things is there's some contacts that need to be made, and we generally don't make those contacts too far in advance a lot of times because weather can change, or we can decide not to do the burn or that kind of stuff. But these contacts are generally made the morning of, and that the first one is to contact the Arkansas Forestry Division, and that's actually required by state law. And there's the phone number there, the 1-800 number that you call in. And when you call this number, you're just basically getting a dispatcher, and they'll ask you some things that are generally in your burn plan, like the lat long, what kind of burn it's going to be, with being grass or forested, what county you're in, that kind of stuff. So, it's good to go ahead and get that out of the way first thing that morning. It's also a good idea to contact your local sheriff's office. Generally, they log that in, and then also, not required, but a good idea if you have some volunteer fire departments that are in the area, to go ahead and make those calls. I know in some counties, when you call the sheriff's department, they send it out automatically to the fire departments, but some counties do not. So, and then the final one is a neighbors. Be a good neighbor. On the neighbors, it's probably good to go around when you have a little bit more time a week before and explain kind of what you're going to do, and then the day of, just let them know, hey, if you have smoke issues, maybe they should go to town for a couple hours or something. So generally what happens on the day of the burn is, once everybody is in place and actually on the property, we have what's called a crew briefing. And so this crew briefing is a time period where you can let everybody get on the same page and kind of get a battle plan, so to speak, on how they're going to attack this particular prescribed fire. So first thing they do is you need a good map. And you can go to Google Earth, you can go to Google Maps, those type places, and print out a map. It can be as fancy or as simple as it is. But so you can see in this example, the blue area there is what we're going to burn, and the red line is the fire breaker out there. Now, a little pro tip that you could think about that kind of helps, especially if you have a lot of people who've never been to your property before. Maybe they're volunteered to help. In that blue area, if on all four corners of that map you wrote A, B, C, D, and then went out in the woods at each one of those corners and nailed up a sign that said A, B, C, D, later on when you're doing the prescribed fire and you're trying to explain to somebody how you want them to ignite from B to D, they'll actually know that they'll be for sure that they're in the right location. So at that time, you also kind of go over the burn plan that you kind of wrote, and we talked about that in previous presentations. You'll go over kind of what the desired fire behavior is, and then the last kind of updated weather report. So also in this crew briefing, there's some things that you need to do is assign some tasks. So obviously, if it's your property, ultimately you're responsible for your own property. So you're going to be, as the landowner, the burn boss in that situation. And so the other folks that are going to be helping you are either going to fall in two categories, either holders or igniters. Holders, these are generally folks who are going to patrol around the fire break and basically monitor the fire as it's going through the unit. Igniters are going to have the drip torch, and they're going to be the ones that are actually going to ignite the fire. And so if you have some folks who maybe have some physical limitations, but yet you can get an ATV all around the property, those people may be good holders. The people with the most experience with fire might be a good example to put them as an igniter. So and the final thing is, let no questions go unasked. When you're all there and you're all trying to figure out who's going where and who's going to do what, make sure everybody understands their role. So equipment, we have lots of equipment that we use on prescribed fire. During this briefing, that's when you would decide who's going to take what equipment, whether it's fire rakes, the igniters using the drip torches, make sure everything's fueled up, ready to go. One thing is to make sure that equipment is equally distributed, like these water tanks here. If you say you had two ATVs with two water tanks and you had two different teams that were going to ignite in two different directions, you wouldn't want both water tanks on one side. You want to make sure you had water tanks on one on each side. So little things like that is to consider. Radio checks, radios and communication is a big portion of this. Cell phones are just not reliable. You need instant group communication that everybody can hear. And these little FRS radios, like you get at Amazon, Walmart, or other box stores, they have come a long way and are very effective for a very inexpensive price. And so really everybody who's on the fire break needs to either have one or be in direct communication with somebody who has one. So you also want to do a radio check at that time at the briefing, make sure everybody is on the right channel and can hear everybody. Smoke management, smoke management is a really crucial part of prescribed fire. During that briefing, you want to explain kind of like, what is the predicted wind direction that smoke is going to go based on your weather report. Is there any roads or major highways that you feel like it's going to cross? Poultry houses, if there is any poultry houses in the area, obviously you wouldn't want to put smoke in on those and cause damage to chickens or livestock. Neighbors, if there's say on your particular burn, there's a one direction that you could put smoke would be a subdivision, or one direction there's just a block of woods, then obviously you would choose a day where the smoke is going to go towards the block of woods. Same thing with schools or other buildings. So contingency plan, in your burn plan, you wrote up some contingencies. And so these at the briefing, you'd want to kind of go over, what happens if kind of things. And so some of the contingency plans is you might put out smoke signs on that highway to slow traffic down. If there is a highway involved where smoke could go across that. Also, if the smoke got really bad, you could call in the sheriff department to maybe sit there and slow down traffic. If it really got really smoky on a highway. And so you would need to have those numbers readily available in case you had to do that. Also, some other contingency plans is, if you had access to a dozer, to be on site would be kind of a luxury, but if you did, it'd be nice. Also, there's some different firing techniques, meaning, you might speed up your ignition to get the smoke up and out of there. That way, it's not causing issues. So kind of, this is like the last time to drive around after the briefing and look one last time, check that unit for any kind of issues. You want to rake around any snags that are, 50 foot off the line. And snags are just simply just a dead haul of trees, that kind of stuff, kind of like that top right picture. Power poles, one that we kind of forget about is those little green electrical boxes that are right there next to the highway, normally have a bunch of grass around them. If you have any fire breaks, make sure your fire breaks, are bare dirt, no dried grassy area in the middle of them. And just look for other hazards, old wells or old barbed wire fences, that kind of stuff. So test burn, so now we're down to the final things before we do the prescribed fire. The test burn is your final opportunity to either go on with this or try and do this another day. And so this is the difference between prescribed fire and a wildfire. Prescribed fire, we can always put that test fire out and decide to come and do this another day. A wildfire obviously is just going to do what nature wants it to do. So basically, these test burns are small enough to extinguish if we had to, and generally we do that test burn kind of right where we're going to begin the prescribed fire. Especially a lot of times if one team is going to go one direction, one team is going to go the opposite direction, we generally kind of go to the middle there and do a little test burn. You're checking for fire behavior. You're checking which way the smoke is kind of blowing. You're checking kind of to double check the weather parameters are doing what you thought they would do. That's also kind of like a last check on some of the equipment, make sure all the water pumps are working, that kind of stuff. And if everything looks good, then you ignite. So these holders are folks generally either on foot or ATV who are patrolling the line. They're your eyes and ears. And so they're monitoring the fire behavior. They're on the radio informing the burn boss of kind of what's going on. They're communicating. And they stay moving. They're not staying in one place very long. What they're looking for is things like this, spot fires. Spot fire is any fire that gets out of the burn unit. And so how it can happen is embers that are carried by wind, leaves that are blown across the fire break, fire that creeps across unwanted lines, and that kind of stuff. And so if you come across a spot fire, if you can handle it immediately, go ahead and take care of it. If you can't handle it within about a minute, then you better call for backup. And you can see in this picture over here, the letter G is one of those points, like I was mentioning before, that if you had a spot over at point G and everybody knew where point G was on the map, it would be very easy for people to find it, versus if you just said, we got a spot fire over by the old oak tree, it might take them a while to get to that spot fire. So mopping up. So now that all the fire is kind of extinguished and out, and everything is what we call cold, meaning it's all black. Now we kind of patrol those lines, make sure everything is out. Holders need to run around the entire unit and with their water tank spraying any fires that are close to the line. This is a crucial part of any fire, especially wood units. A grass unit, it may not be. Mop up is pretty easy, but in a woods unit, you got a lot of snags, and those snags need to either be out or on the ground before everybody leaves. So just like we briefed at the beginning of this operation, we want to brief at the end. And so everybody gets back together. For one thing, that's the burn boss knows everybody's safe. Everybody came back from all their particular jobs that they were doing. Are all the lines cold, black, with meaning with no fire on them? Is there any snags to monitor? So, is there any snags that are on fire, and mark those on the map? Is there any issues that could pop up overnight? Meaning, is there any wind fronts or that kind of stuff that's going to come through? Decide who's going to watch this overnight, and who's going to check it in the morning, and just to make sure everything is going to be okay. And with that, I'll wrap it up, I guess, if anybody has any questions.
Some of the questions or comments I guess I had was, when we're doing the briefing in the morning, there's usually people telling people like, hey, you're going to go with this unit, or you're going to go with this unit. So people know where they're going, and there's no confusion there. And if you don't feel comfortable doing something in particular, you can always say like, hey, I don't feel comfortable. There's always that question, right?
Right. And that's the thing is, during that briefing, you want to make sure everybody, because you'll always have different varying degrees of experience, people that are out there. And so you want to make sure you put people in an area that they're not, that they can do the job and that they can do it safely. So, that's the time at that time, is to ask any questions and make sure everybody feels comfortable with that.
Yeah, because I don't want landowners to think that they're just going to get thrown in somewhere. It's all based off comfort level and level of experience, and so they're not just being placed randomly.
And a lot of landowners, the term burn boss scares a lot of landowners.
Oh, I'm sure.
And sometimes the burn boss may not necessarily be the person with the most experience, but obviously if it's your property, it's your house or your property there that you're on, I mean, you're going to be responsible for it. So exactly. I mean, that's why in a landowner situation, if you're inviting people over to help you burn your property, you are the burn boss. So
yeah, you want that responsibility. Yes. I feel like you would want it, at least since that's your house and things like that. Yeah. And I think it's important to note, when we're burning, communication is very vital. Because we don't have eyes on everybody all the time. And so if you're one of those people that don't like to speak up, you're going to have to speak up in this situation, just for your safety and safety of others.
And good radio etiquette is good about that. And as the burn boss checking in with folks, like, talking to your igniters, where are you at? How, stop when you get to point A or stop when you get to point B, that kind of stuff. And so, it's one of those things. And then also, your holders, how's it going? How's it, how's that smoke progressing, or is it, that kind of stuff. And so, but just making sure everybody is short and concise on the radio and not like hogging the channel or that kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And I also think during the debrief, that's important. It's, every fire is a learning experience. And so if something didn't go quite right, or, someone didn't feel totally comfortable in the end, then they could at least speak up and kind of give their, 2 cents about it. And
at the debrief is one, we want everybody to go home safe. That's the number
exactly.
One. And then also that did we get accomplished what we were trying to get accomplished? I mean, we wanted to burn this whole unit. Well, was it patchy? Did it not burn? Was the wind shifted? That kind of stuff. And then, like you said, there's always a lesson to be learned. And so, and then as that burn boss, ultimately they're responsible for those people, that are out there helping them. And so this is a way to make sure everybody, got out of the unit safely, and then everybody's going home safely. And then also, those final questions is, who's coming back to watch this, and it's probably a lot of it's going to be the burn boss, but maybe maybe another person volunteers, hey, I'm off tomorrow, I can come back and help you go
Mhm.
around it. So, it's just kind of those follow-up things.
Yeah, exactly. So that's all the questions that I have for you, Ted, unless you wanted to add something else.
No, I think that
Okay.
really wraps it up.
Okay. Well, I'm just going to make a quick statement for the people that are watching this video. Um, just a reminder that all these Learn to Burn 1 classes are going to be online, and they will be available on the Quail Forever Arkansas Facebook page and our YouTube channel. And they should also be available on the Arkansas Game and Fish social media platforms as well. And if you do have any questions about anything that we discussed today, you're always welcome to reach out to any of your private lands biologists in your area or the Quail Forever Farm Bill biologist if we cover your area as well. We're always willing to answer any questions that you may have. And with that, thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next video.